Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So we're now up to Core Set 2020 in our nostalgic trip through previous Magic the Gathering sets. There were 280 cards in this set in boosters, but as we've seen for quite a while now, there's a whole load of other stuff outside the boosters. And even more than usual in this core set. So, in terms of the 280 booster cards, we've got 112 commons, 80 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythic rares, also 20 basic lands, the most important part. In addition, outside of the cards in the booster packs, there's a buy a box promo. There's actually 20 Planeswalker deck exclusives because for the core sets at that point there were 5 Planeswalker decks as opposed to the usual 2 that you were seeing in the expansion sets that weren't core sets. And there were also 43 what are called welcome deck cards. So I think I've mentioned them in passing before, but often with core sets you would find these welcome decks that were supposed to be given out, and you may stumble across them occasionally. I've seen them on eBay, I've seen them all over the place. They sometimes get rebundled with other stuff by these firms that buy up Magic products and then repackage them. So yeah, they're fairly they're out there, and if you dig a little bit you can find them. Historically they usually just composed of, I think, commons and uncommons from stuff that was in the set. What we were seeing now is that they were sort of their own little thing. And no doubt we will stumble across those when we're doing this muse through of the set. But when I get to the end and I start talking about, up here non-booster related components like the toolkit, I'll certainly talk again about those welcome deck cards. So stuff to look out for. There was a theme of Chandra in the set. Elementals were a thing. That's a good thing. Wedges, there was a little bit of a wedge theme. Colour hate. And ley lines. There are a cycle of ley lines. In terms of keywords and abilities, what they did with this set, as they did with the last set, is there's just a broad evergreen theme or set of keywords and abilities in here. Also, there's some protection going on. Now, if you watched the previous core set I did, was it 2019, you'll notice there was also a very broad evergreen keyword thing going on. And as we get further in now, you can see, and I've mentioned this on several occasions, the ever-presence of certain two-colour fixing here. And then we get onto the basic lands, and if we scroll down far enough, we get to the buyer box, we get to the 24, actually I said 20, so in actual fact I was wrong. There's 24 Planeswalker deck exclusives. And 39 starter deck or welcome decks. So yeah, slightly different than what's reported on MTG Wiki then. Now, of course, when we slice and dice this, I'll be going through the set in totality, both the boosters and the other stuff. And we've got a card variation here as well. Okay. So yeah, this is just a flag up. So the threshold is 280. So anything above that is not available in a booster. So we actually have 64 cards outside of the usual booster cards. That, you know, that's quite a lot. I don't know if we've seen that many before at this point in Magic's history. And of course, again, we're talking about draft boosters as if you like the core base of the set. We've got 150 cards in here which are reprints. And if you're familiar with core sets, you'll know, there's normally very roughly a 50-50 percentage between reprints and non-reprints. But remember now, in this particular slice, this would include anything that would be reprinted as a result of them being included in the Planeswalker decks or the Welcome decks. Now, if you're curious, one way I can show you where the cutoff is. So that's in totality 150. If I do this, you'll see that actually within that 38 cards are in, outside of the regular boosters. So these are reprints from the other supplemental product, whatever you want to call it. If we look at stuff that's not reprints, there's 174 cards. And again, what we can do is just net off, net off anything below 280. So from that figure, there's 26 cards that at that point were new cards, but they weren't in the boosters, in the draft boosters. Okay, so again, back to just the total set with everything. There's 20 cards that are completely colourless, colour identity here. So no activation cost colours, although there may be a reference to a colour because some of these could be mana rocks of some description. And there are several cards here that sort of fit that bill, that are mana rocks. Interestingly, we have Golos, which here, we can use mana of any colour to cast it. So colour identity, colour of 0 in the casting cost. But also some sort of colour in the colour identity, and that's due to the fact here we have a activation cost with WUBERG colours in it. So yeah, it's apart from the fact it's banned in Commander, when it wasn't banned, and I'm not sure at what point it did get banned, this was obviously a 5-colour general. So yeah, too powerful for Commander. I'm not too sure how quickly that got banned. So with respect to monocolour cards, there's 268. There's nothing where it's a single colour in the casting cost, but there's multiple colours in the overall colour identity, owing to additional casting cost colours outside of the activation cost colours outside of the casting cost. 2-colour stuff, 10 cards. We'll see if that maps to the usual draft archetypes. But yeah, 10 2-colour cards. And we've got 6 cards that have more than 2 colours in the casting cost. And I'm sure we may well find, because of the presence in the set of a wedge theme, that 5 out of 6 of these form a cycle. So let's have a look at creatures in white. So again, it's a core set. It'll be interesting to see how it plays to certain reoccurring presences, if that's a word, in colours for various creature subtypes. So what do we have? Angels, human, correct, dwarf soldiers. Yeah, dwarves, as a result of previous expansion sets, seem to be a lot more dwarves getting printed than we'd seen before. I suppose that really started, or was it around the time of Ether Revolt, around that sort of time period? Humans, oh look, so there's quite a few griffins here. Spirits, angels and humans. Got a legendary creature there. And of course, some of these are going to be outside of boosters. It's always interesting with core sets to see the proportion of multicoloured cards. Historically, if you go back in Magic's history, there was a period in core sets where they avoided having multicolour cards, and over the years with the newer core sets, they've sort of come in to being much more present. Cool elementals. So merfolk. There's an octopus. Cool. Human, artificer, sphinx. Yeah, pretty broad tribal elements here across colours. It's a nice looking card. So in black, vampires, bats, insects, humans. Beasts is a nightmare. We've got an elemental knight. Birds, thralls, zombies, more vampires. There's even a zombie dinosaur. The other interesting thing, it's always cool to see these like reassembling type skeletons where they're fairly low cost, and then there's some sort of cost which prevents them either ending up in the graveyard because they regenerate, or in the case of this one, enabling you to bounce it back, and again this one from the graveyard to your hand, other ones, you know, the graveyard to the battlefield or whatever. We'll see if we see a cycle of these anywhere. With other creature types. So moving into red, elementals, dragons, goblins. Yeah. Quite a number of goblins in red. And then it was always interesting as well with the presence of the welcome deck and the Planeswalker deck. This is particularly, I think these were the welcome decks. You know, bringing back a lot of classic creatures as well. Yeah, quite a number of like 2-colour elementals there, 3-colour as well, multicolour elementals. So moving into green, do we have a lot of elves? Another monocolour legendary creature there. Seeing a few elves, I'm not seeing a lot at this point. You can see sort of post, what was it, Ixalan period. We are starting to see dinosaurs crop up more often in sets. There's the ever-present Manadork in green. I think you're probably already getting a feel where quite possibly the direction that the episode after this, which will be a Commander Durdle episode, the direction that's going to go in, because of the presence of a certain creature type in here. So large spells, really anything 7 and more to cast. We have 8 cards here, including this artifact creature. In fact, it looks like, let me just put these in order of casting cost, if I can actually find it. There we go, mana value. Are they all 7? Oh no, that one is 8. And one of the reasons I put it in the colours just to see if all the colours are represented at least once. So white, blue, black, yeah. So I mentioned that there was a Chandra theme in the set. You can see in total across both the booster pack cards and the other product outside of that, there are 9 cards that reference Chandra in some way or are a Chandra legendary planeswalker. Now, if I've still got this stuck in the paste, let's just see what was. So yeah, 2 of those come from the supplemental product from the set, and then the rest, the remaining 7, are actually in the set. There's our elementals. So 36 cards that are either elemental or mention elementals somewhere. I mentioned about wedges. I just wanted to bring up here, so you can see we've actually got 6 3-colour cards here. Although, if we look at this, you can see that we've got red, white, black, green, blue, red, white, black, green, blue, red, white, black, green, blue. So these are the wedge cards. But there is actually, and I didn't really look into this as to why, there is a single shard card here. Red, green, white card. So there's the other thing I'd mentioned is in the set there is a, what would you call it, like a well, actually maybe I didn't, because it's elementals, wedges. I don't know if I mentioned colour hate or not. So what you have is you have a number of cards that offer protection from other colours in the colour pie, or have some sort of interaction with cards in a way that punishes the player for playing them, or playing cards in a particular colour in the colour pie. Ley lines in the set, looks like that could well be a cycle. And then this whole evergreen keyword, ability word thing. So there's 45 cards that have somewhere in them some sort of evergreen. Now, as you can see, a lot of the time it's flying. So we got what, flying, vigilance, flash, just scrolling down here, defender, scry. Looks like it, I mean, does it treat enchant as an evergreen? Death touch, haste there. Interesting, you got reach in red there. There's reach in green, there's menace, more flash, more vigilance, more reach, death touch, trample, and so on, and some flying. And equip. And if I go back up here, so I've sliced it up even more. So these are the common ones. So 45 are common, 35 are uncommon, because I was trying to get a feel for across the different rarities as to whether there was anything slightly different. So you can see here we've got cards that are sort of offering protection alongside flying. Bit of exile there. But yeah, a lot of the protection from cards seem to be at uncommon. More reach, trample and flying. And then of course at uncommon we have the two colour cards as well. If we move up to rare, we've got 29 cards with some sort of keyword on them. Again, looks predominantly like flying. And there was a lifelink there, there's a death touch. Haste, but yeah, a lot of flying, some more trample, vigilance, flash. Some more protection here. And of course the cycle of rare non-basic lands had scry on them. And Lotusfield had hexproof. If we go up to mythic, you can see all of the cavaliers, which we'll see. Well, actually there's 4 cavaliers here. Have a keyword on them. We'll see if this is a cycle or not. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 out of the 6 multicolours. Legendaries are considered to have a keyword on them, using this sort of scryfall search. Okay, so let's slice and dice this a little bit more finely. We've got 5 mythic monocoloured planeswalkers. There's a cycle of them, and as you can see from the number there, the cycle is within the draft boosters. Yeah, we do have a cycle of cavaliers. So it was the red one that didn't have a keyword on it. Red evergreen. And these 5 mythic elemental night creatures, each costing 2 MMM, each has a powerful enters the battlefield, a synergistic dice trigger, and a keyword, or can gain a keyword ability. Actually, that does have haste tucked away in there, but it's gain. Yeah, okay, so that's why. So 5 iconic legendaries, 5 rare monocoloured iconic legendary creatures, each costing at least MMM. Cycle of Ley Lines, 5 rare enchantments, each of which cost 2 MM, and can start the game on the battlefield if they are in a player's opening hand. So another cycle. So 5 rare instants and sorceries, each of which have an effect that happens twice and have an alliterative name. Brought back, drawn from dreams, scheming symmetry, repeated reverberation, and shared summons. Wow, got that right first time. You can see here 2 or twice is present in the rules text. Okay, enemy colour hoses. 5 uncommon instants and sorceries, each of which punish an opponent for playing their enemy colours. There was 5 protection creatures, 5 creatures each of which have protection from one of their enemy colours. 4 are uncommon and 1 is rare. So there was a cycle of that. We have a cycle of uncommon multicoloured, roll that back. 5 uncommon monocoloured artefacts. And then we have these cards at common, this cycle. There are 5 common spells that get more powerful when played with multiple copies of the same card. 2 are reprints from Magic's origin. So yeah, it's not a new thing. You get cards in Magic that tutor for copies of themselves, but also cards like this which will, I suppose, buff in some way, get more powerful, have some advantage when you're playing multiple copies. Taken to its extreme, you also see cards in Magic where they actually allow you to play copies of a card beyond the usual restriction of 4 in regular, in standard, or not in basically non-singleton formats. And even in singleton formats, there are some cards which allow you to play more than one copy, but not in this case. Obviously, this is these just don't work in singleton formats. The allied and other signposts. So we have 5 uncommon allied colour spells, each of which supports 1 wedge draft archetype, and then also 5 uncommon enemy coloured spells, each of one which supports 2 wedge draft archetypes. So the allied ones are Empyrean Eagle, Time Bound Leash, Ogre Siegebreaker, Creeping Trailblazer, and Ironroot Warlord. And then the enemy, also referred to, I believe, the crossover signposts, because they cross over to 2 wedge draft archetypes, is Corpse Knight, Lightning Stormkin, Moldavine Reclamation, Sky Knight Vanguard, and Risen Reef. Cycle of Temples, so 5 rare enemy coloured Skylands reprinted from the Theros block. So cycle of Wedge Legends, of which one of these no doubt will feature in the upcoming Commander Dirtle episode. I wonder if you can guess which one. Well, you'll know by the end of this episode, because I was mentioning at the end. Now, the other interesting thing is there are a cycle of these 10 life gain tap lands. So they're at common, and they enter the battlefield tapped, gain the control of 1 life, and can tap for 2 different colours of mana. These are the reprints from Khans of Tarkir and Fate Reforged, but there have been life gain lands previous to those sets. As well. So actually it was nice to see these printed at common, because I'd mentioned several times now, we were starting to see the same, the other tap lands, which became a fairly regular feature of sets up to now. So it's nice to have these tap lands with this additional life gain on them. So we've got a vertical cycle depicting Chandra Nala in various stages of her life, and these are only the ones from the boosters. If we take this out here, just so you can see where the additional card is outside of the vertical cycle, that one's from outside of it. And if you, it says it's from the core set, but which it is, but yeah, that would be from one of the Planeswalker decks. Now, the other thing I did want to mention in passing, I wasn't planning going through this because we'll certainly see them here, but because there were so many precons and they were all monocoloured, there were cycles within the precons. So there was a cycle of Planeswalkers, a cycle of Planeswalker tutors, there was a cycle of 3 of creatures, so there were 5 uncommon creatures which appear in 3 copies of the Planeswalker decks, cycle of 4 of creatures, so 4 copies in the Planeswalker decks, and there was also a cycle of welcome deck rares as well, but no doubt we'll revisit those when we get to look at the supplemental product. But just so you know, because of the presence of 5 decks and they were monocolour, there were sort of full cycles in there. So we've got 21 mythic rares in the set, and you can see how a number of those are actually legendary Planeswalkers. Also, because of the presence of these wedge legendaries, we've got those are at mythic as well. In fact, all of those, including the shard 3 colour, was also printed at mythic. In fact, it's interesting because also the presence of these monocolour elemental knights. I think here it looks like, is it either Planeswalkers or creatures across both the boosters and the supplemental product outside of the boosters? Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that before in a set. Normally there's at least one other mythic that's not either a creature or Planeswalker. Basic lands. So it's a core set, so you probably may well recognise these basic lands from other sets, and certainly some of the artwork does quite regularly feature in core sets a lot. I've certainly seen my fair share of this in core sets, and yeah, probably this as well. Maybe I know this one, something in that style. 19 non-basic lands. So we've seen that there were a cycle of 5 and a cycle of 10 that we've already looked at. So the life lands, whatever you want to call them, life gain tap lands, I think is their correct title. The temples, so these scry lands, and they do actually come into play tapped. And then, so that would give us 15. So there's 4 additional ones outside of those cycles. We've got Cryptic Caves, we've got Evolving Wilds, we've got Field of the Dead. Now, was Field of the Dead... Okay, no, it wasn't a reprint. I almost half expected that to be in, like, you know, I'm trying to think of the set now where zombies were a big thing. Cat, but no. And Lotus Field, that was a new card as well. What about Cryptic Caves? New as well. So yeah, it's a lot of basic lands. A lot of non-basic lands for a core set. 12 planeswalkers in the set. Again, this is across, you know, everything. Boosters and supplemental product. And yeah, it's fairly easy like this to spot the ones that are above 280 and the ones below 280. So 12 of them. And the reason why there's 12 is because you've got 2 more in red, which is Chandra. 13 legendary that are not planeswalkers. So we've got these cycle of monocoloured legendary creatures. We have a legendary artifact, and then we have a cycle of those 3 colours plus cycle of the 3 colour shards, wedges, and the shard. Hopefully I haven't been getting them around the wrong way. And then Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. $191 creatures of some type or another in the set. 9 enchantments, that includes the ley lines. And we've got a 2 colour there. 12 auras. So what are they enchanting? Looks like mainly creatures. There's a land here. So creatures and a land. 10 artifact creatures. That's actually quite a lot in a set. And this interesting filter artifact creature. Although it, yeah, for a cost of 2 you get 1 mana of any colour. And then we have this 2/2 for 3, which also taps 1 mana of any colour. So not dissimilar in some ways to the Mir, although I think they tend to have a slightly lower power and toughness. So 6 pieces of equipment, 3 of which are actually coloured equipment, and then we have Colossus Hammer, Heart Piercer Bow and Marauder's Axe. So I think that's good, because the last few sets there's not been much equipment around. And then 11 regular artifacts. There is one legendary here. You can see here's the remainder of the coloured artifacts. So some were equipment, and some were just a regular artifact from that cycle. Got a bag of holding here. It's Grafdigger's Cage, which is a reprint from Dark Ascension, if you remember. Yeah, I always love the utility that, like, the modern core set seems to bring. It's always interesting to see what they put in here. 37 cards that are instants. It's a core set, so I don't expect to see anything particularly unusual beyond the sort of usual instant speed spells that you see in blue. There is some, you can see here, we've got some modal stuff going on. And it's also interesting to compare and contrast the complexity of certain types of spells when you consider the newer core sets versus what used to be core sets. So yeah, the only additional thing I see here is the references to certain colours of mana, which was a theme in the set, like hosing and various other aspects were there, revolving around the colours of mana, the colour pie. So 27 sorceries. Got Plane of Cleansing in here. Disentomb, Duress, Mind Rot was an act of treason. So I'm just looking to see what reprints they've done. Tectonic Rift. Now, Tectonic Rift, oh, that was from a core set. It's funny how when I see certain cards, I would think, oh, maybe they come from, like, I just feel that would be at home in, like, Shard's Block, maybe, just because of the artwork, but no. I mean, Act of Treason has been around for a fairly long. Well, was that M10 the first time it was printed? Yeah, I suppose that is a long time now. It's Duress. It's another one that I just have this feeling's been kicking around. Oh yeah. Back to wow. Right, I've gone off a bit of a tangent now. There's Bone Splinters, but hopefully that gives you a bit of idea for the sorcery utility. So back to the full set of cards. Yeah, looking forward to the Friday artwork video. Be interesting to see what I can dig up, what sort of rares I pulled. Not sure how many boosters I opened of the core set. I'm not sure at what point I started cutting back. I think the main reason for me opening less boosters was as we got into this period, or even prior to this, I was less inclined to buy the Planeswalker decks. And as a consequence, obviously, those have boosters in them, so indirectly I was opening less packs. But there was a deck builder's toolkit, so might be some from there ended up. Okay, price wise, Field of the Dead, top of the pile, banned all over the place. And we've got Sorin, Chandra, Cavalier of Thorns. So yeah, the mythics have triumphantly bubbled to the top there. But what's that? The land there, that was just a regular rare. Okay. We're near the cut-off. Yep. Elvish Reclaimer. Some ley lines. Okay. So all the new stuff against the EDH rec ranking. Veil of Summer bubbles to the top. Field of the Dead, Moldavine Reclamation, Mystic Forge, Villis Broker of Blood, Drakaseth, Maw of Flames. Great titles for these legendary creatures. And the reprints versus EGH rate ranking. So Evolving Wilds, Negate, and the Temples. So when we mesh, and the ley lines. So when we mesh the two together, no surprise. So these two bubble up, Negate, Evolving Wilds, and then we get Veil of Summer, and then the Temples. And then back to Moldavine Reclamation. And here are the tap lands where they also give you life. I need more life. I won't do the full quote. I've probably got the quote wrong from Blade Runner there. A bit at the end between it's spoken by the Warren. Is it Warren? Not Warren. Oh dear. Anyway, Roy Batty. That's it. I think is the name of the character in the replicant. The interaction at the end, stroke fight scene between Roy Batty and Deckard. Yeah, brilliant. So this is the Legends versus the EDH rec ranking. Now, of course, this is just generally against the ranking. And yeah, one of these will be in our upcoming Commander Durdle episode. But yeah, this fine artwork on these. I always love the Sphinx artwork and seeing what sort of beard they have, if any. Okay, so core set 2020, which we've just been through. Scroll down to the bottom. There was a land station for this. So yeah, the 5 Planeswalker decks: Ajani, Yanling, Sorin, Chandra, Vivian. As you can see, they're mono-coloured. So we're not going to see anything spectacular, I don't think, in the land department. It's just all basic lands. And I mentioned earlier how across here, across the decks, you've got precon only cycles. So the cycle of planeswalkers, the cycle of planeswalker tutors, the 3-off creatures, the 4-off creatures, and additionally we'll come on to the welcome decks as well. I think in a moment I've got those up. And if we look here, you can see here's our exclusive cards. So mythic and a rare, and then a couple of additional rares here from the set. So these are the ones that collector number exclusive to the deck, whereas these are from the set. And the same in all the other colours. So yeah, no fancy utility lands. No need to do any fixing, but yeah. There was a deck builder's toolkit. Yeah, not my favourite period of deck builder's toolkits. 125 fixed cards and an awful lot of that real estate taken up by land fixing. So he did have 100 basic lands on top of that, but it would have been nice if they'd have not included and just have this separate as well and give you 22 more cards. So in this point in the deck builder's toolkit's history, the only random component of any description is going to be the booster packs you get. 4 15-card booster packs. Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Allegiance, War of the Spark, and the core set. And the idea was there were 125 cards suitable for improving the Planeswalker decks. That was the logic. There were these Spell Slinger starter kits. I don't think I've ever bought them. These were 2 60-card pre-constructed decks, each containing 5 rares. It was released on the... Okay, so the previous time they did this in Guilds of Ravnica, it was released on the same day, but it has no obvious connection to the set. This was marketed as part of the core set release. Had shiny foils in it, and some spin down counters. So these, yeah, monocolour. Oh, it's got ley lines in it. Okay, it's quite a lot of rares as well. Yeah, aimed at new players. Okay. So yeah, this is a return to, like, back in the day they used to have these 2-player starter decks. But back then, if you go back far enough, they used to have these like managed walkthrough as well to help sort of explain the game. And the welcome decks. So 5 monocolour. These were 30-card decks. They're like effectively sample decks that are supposed to be given away. And they've been kicking around for a long time. I mean, I can remember them from 10th edition and probably even earlier. Well, either 10th edition or M10. I always get it muddled up when I first saw them, but I think probably 10th edition. Like I said, probably even sooner, maybe. In some times, they didn't even acknowledge them because they were just supposed to be intended to be given away. And these did have rares in them. I think the originals just had commons and uncommons from what I remember. So, what are we going to be talking about in the Commander Battle episode? Well, you can see it's going to be elementals. Anyway, I'll come back to that in the episode because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the card pool. And you can see here at the end I was definitely doing a search through for elementals in preparation for that. So there we have it. That's another set musings from, in this case, Core Set 2020. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in the next episode.